The following health update is brought to you by Health by Yourself. Visit us on the web at healthbyyourself.net. High cholesterol could be considered a fabricated health issue. And in order to back that up, I want to just explain a little bit about how cholesterol works. One of the functions of cholesterol is to repair damaged blood vessels. So that if a person has damage in the blood vessels, the cholesterol is sort of like a patch. It's sort of like putty. It soothes the damage and it helps repair the damage. So that cholesterol becomes necessary when there is more blood vessel damage. Now a statistician could look at that and notice that people who have a lot of strokes or people who have arteriosclerosis, they might notice that there's a correlation between high cholesterol and different health problems. And then the presumption is that it's the cholesterol that's the problem. And on that basis, they can justify selling millions of dollars worth of cholesterol medication. Now that would be the equivalent to correlating fever with infection and justifying selling fever medication in an attempt to help people who are sick. But if you look deeper, you'll realize that the fever is the antidote for the infection. And whenever two things come together, you can't assume that one causes the other. And so the basic rule about statistics is that correlation is not the same thing as cause and effect. But when you're selling something, you just sort of ignore that basic rule with statistics. And you just say that, high cholesterol is associated with stroke, and then you can convince the people that they need to take the cholesterol medication to prevent a stroke or heart attack. And then we have the issue with good and bad cholesterol. And first of all, it's presumed that this high cholesterol is bad because it is leading to clogging of the arteries. And so therefore, your LDL, which is your bad cholesterol, since it carries cholesterol from your liver to your blood vessels, that's considered bad. And the high density lipoproteins, the HDLs, carry the cholesterol back to your liver, and so that's considered good because it's getting it out of your blood vessels. Again, the necessary amount of cholesterol in your blood is going to change based on the conditions in your blood. And so sometimes you'll need more HDL and sometimes you'll need more LDL, and it's dependent upon whether or not you need more or less cholesterol. And there are other roles for cholesterol. For instance, the brain uses a lot of cholesterol, so people who have a really active brain will run a little bit higher. And so there's different issues, so we don't want to make it sound like we are some authority on cholesterol. We're trying to make the point that no person is an authority on cholesterol, and only a fool tries to micromanage something that is way beyond their understanding. But still, there is a lot that is known, and one of the pathways that we have gone down is to ask the question, what is it that actually causes the damaged blood vessels? And it's real obvious that free radicals cause damaged blood vessels. Free radicals are caused when there's a lot of oxygen floating around in the blood. A lot of oxygen floating around in the blood happens with hyperventilation, among other things. Hyperventilation happens when you have an inefficient metabolism. And to give you a real example, just imagine a person who's in really good shape. They're going for a walk or maybe even running, and they're really not breathing that hard. They're not working very hard. And that's because their cells are so strong that they're just sort of cruising. But then a person who's out of shape, they might just be walking upstairs or might even just be walking on flat ground, and they might be completely exhausted and they might be breathing really fast. What's happening in that latter case is that this out-of-shape person who has weak cells and an inefficient metabolism, that person is having to resort to an emergency anaerobic metabolism just to get by. And they're producing so much acid and so much carbon dioxide that they're having to hyperventilate to get rid of all the acid and the carbon dioxide. And that's necessary to get rid of it. The downside is when you're hyperventilating, you're also breathing in a lot of extra oxygen, and that oxygen is toxic. So oftentimes someone will ask, what do I do about my high cholesterol? Or they'll ask, is there a natural way to lower my cholesterol? And since they usually ask on the way out, I find myself tongue-tied because I can't advocate even trying to lower the cholesterol, because high cholesterol is a symptom in the same way that a fever is a symptom. It should never be your goal. I see no reason to even have your cholesterol checked. And I'm sure if you are going to try to lower your cholesterol, to do it naturally is a much better way. At least you don't have to overload your liver with the actual medication. But if you really want high cholesterol to be unnecessary, you would have to improve the efficiency of your metabolism, which is a fancy way of saying you have to improve your general conditioning. So often in this technologically advanced era, we sort of look to complicated, expensive therapies as being the best therapies. But in reality, complicated, advanced therapies are usually a bad idea. But improving your general conditioning, that's kind of boring. That doesn't seem too advanced. It doesn't cost hardly any money, and it primarily requires an exercise program starting with something easy like walking. And so we've developed a system to help everybody develop their general conditioning, and we think that's the most important thing anybody can do for their health. But to get involved with trying to micromanage cholesterol or any other blood value, we see as being counterproductive, and we would even say that it demonstrates a certain level of arrogance on the people who think that they can do it. Thanks for listening. Visit us on the web at healthbyyourself.net.